He's Brandel Chamblee of the Golf Channel and kind enough to join us on short notice. I'd been talking about this the last few days here, Brandel, that, it's one thing to rehab an injury. It's another thing to rehab your mind. And I think that's a bigger obstacle for Tiger Woods than, his back or knee or whatever else is coming up. What do you think?
Well, I think you're right, Dan. If you look at the technical issues of his golf swing, whatever, that's a 6-month, that's a year issue. Physical issues, he says he's probably ready to go and he's going to be practicing next week. But the chipping issue that he has, which is obviously rooted in the mind, that's a forever issue.
Yeah.
And that never goes away. I mean, there's guys that get around the putting yips, but there's only 3 or 4 or 5 guys that I've ever seen with the chipping yips in professional golf. And within a year or so, they were out of the game and never to be seen again, basically.
But mentally, we always talked about how tough Tiger was. And, the fact that he, won the U.S. Open when he needed surgery. How does this happen?
I don't know. I mean, there are people all over the world far smarter than me trying to study the origin of the yips, where it comes from, how it gets in there. I had heard rumors that, and I had seen his knees sort of buckling as he was hitting sort of basic chip shots last year, and that's certainly a sign that somebody's got some issues.
Really?
Just in general, if you look at what Tiger Woods has done, and he doesn't just have the yips with his chipping, he's got the yips with his full swing, which is really just a two-way miss. And there are ways around that, but I think it comes from incessant tinkering, never knowing where you're at in your game, can't find your way back home. But beyond that, it's got deeper roots mentally.
Does he need a swing coach?
No, I mean, he doesn't. There's guys that have played this game without a swing coach. Lee Trevino didn't have one. Ben Hogan didn't have one. But most everybody else needs somebody, just every now and then for a check. I mean, I think they've got, and I'm going to call them helicopter teachers out here on the PGA Tour. Not that many. I mean, just a few that hover all the time, and their players need incessant advice. But Tiger seems to be that way. I was talking to Hank Haney yesterday, and he said after watching him play an almost flawless round in the first round of the 2007 Masters, and the second day he came out, and his swing was completely different. And Hank said, "What are you doing?" And he said, "I saw something in my swing I didn't like last night." And, I mean, that's the way Tiger Woods has always been. I think his talent gave him the luxury of experimentation, but sooner or later, you run into the wrong person, and I think he did, you're going to get caught.
But you're also, when you deal with perfection, you're never satisfied because, and it's something, to a lesser degree that I have struggled with for a long, long time, that I would never do a job around my house because I couldn't do it better than the person that I would pay to come in and do it. Like it had to be, I'll go into a room and notice if a painting is off center. Like and it can help you. It drives you, but it can drive you crazy. And I could only imagine if you're playing golf where you can never be perfect and you're trying to be perfect, it'll drive you crazy.
Yeah, definitely. But, I think everybody that gets to the top at whatever they do has an incessant desire to get better. But athletes, if you look at the ones who've endured, and there is no greater determinant of success than time, the ones that endure get a method pretty early on in their life, and then experience makes them better, and then they learn how to hit certain shots maybe that they didn't have that great success with when they were younger, but it's experience and nuances that make them better. Michael Jordan looked the same when he entered the league as when he left the league. Jack Nicklaus looked pretty much the same as he did when he left. Tiger Woods was drastically changing his method. He would scrap one that would win majors 4 in a row and by wide margins for another, and then scrap that won 35% of the events he played in for a completely another. So, that takes time, and it takes a toll on your body. I think, Tiger brought greater athletes to the game, certainly, but I think all of these athletes have watched the mistakes he's made throughout his career and the time it took to make them. And I think they've learned from him.
Don't you think he could just go out and play? And could he be a competitive golfer? That's another thing, is his expectation level is so high. We reinforce that. Could he be a guy who may not win but is going to be flirting with the top 10 occasionally?
Not now. He's going to have to drastically change his golf swing. He's unfortunately he's in a spot now where I don't know that he can dig his way out of it because his swing is causing the injuries, and he's not healed up completely with his injuries. Regardless of what he says, he's not. His golf swing is going to keep causing the injuries, and he, after 6-8 months now that he's been working, there's no obvious gain in his golf swing to change what's causing the problem. So he's in this vicious cycle. But could he just go out and play? You'd like to think so, but his golf swing has gotten so bad in particular areas that it's causing injuries.
More likely to win a major, Tiger or Phil?
Oh, Phil by a mile.
And I don't think Phil is that close, but so we know how far Tiger is then.
Right. Phil's got some, he said last week, to use his words, my putting is pathetic, or beyond pathetic, he said. But yes, he can turn that around and figure it out with his head. I mean, Phil hasn't lost his game and his nerves. Tiger's lost his games, his nerves, his health, his swing. He's got a lot of holes in the boat.
Brandel, good to visit with you again as always. We appreciate your honesty. Thank you.
You bet, Dan. Take care.
That's Brandel Chamblee, former player on the PGA Tour, now an analyst with the Golf Channel.